Well, piano was basically my first instrument. I grew up in Paris, and my folks are from Oregon, and my mom's actually an opera singer. So there was always a piano in the house, and I remember when I was like 4 years old, going up to that piano and just kind of reaching way up, and I really remember this pretty clearly. It's funny, and just like touching some keys, and so I started lessons when I was 6, and I was very much a pianist from an early age. But now I like to play a lot of different instruments. It's something that I feel like really fuels my sound at the piano, because piano is such a kind of strange typewriter-like instrument. You gotta constantly fight to make it really sing. So I like to play alto, sax. I played with Lee Konitz on stage a couple times, which is hilarious. I played sax, yeah, with Lee as like on the second encore or something. Yeah, I'd be like, grab your horn, And I like to play bass. I like to sing. I like to play guitar. Just all things I do kind of as an amateur. I don't try to be great at them, but I even when I teach now, I always say like, you should be playing at least one other instrument that's really different from the piano, because otherwise, that sound just kind of gets. You gotta fight to keep it alive. Man, so my upbringing is actually pretty different from a lot of guys in my generation. So I grew up in Paris with these American parents who like never had a TV, and because they were expats, really, I would say lived about as outside of pop culture as you possibly could. So I had Beatles records when I was a kid, and I'd go to parties, of course, because it's not like I was homeschooled, and I was exposed to all that. But somehow, the music I listened to growing up was classical and jazz, like 95%. And I got really into boogie woogie when I was like 6 or 7. So I used to listen to James P. Johnson all the time, and Fats Domino was my man for a long time, and Jerry Lee Lewis, and the Beatles I totally wore out, but really, a lot of my peers, like I play a lot with Ben Wendell, really grew up with rock and electronica and stuff like that as their music, and that's not really how I grew up. I actually got into pop music just like in the last 10 years, but like almost as an anthropological thing of like, oh, look at this interesting thing that people have done, and kind of study it and include it or not. But I actually grew up kind of differently from a lot of guys. Well, some of my, I was pretty lucky. My grandfather, my mother's dad, was a jazz pianist on the West Coast, and so he was a big influence on me early on. He didn't really teach me a lot, but having him as an example, hearing him play, made it real to me that you could improvise, that was a legitimate thing to do. Because I was taking classical piano lessons at the conservatory in Paris starting at age 6, and my teacher was always discouraging me from improvising. So my grandfather was a big influence, and then I was lucky enough in Paris. I mean, I'm really self-taught as an improviser in many ways. Like I basically learned all that stuff, but I got to interact a little bit with Martial Solal, who's one of the greatest French jazz pianists, and he was a big influence on me as a teenager and then into my early 20s. I would say he acted as a mentor for me, and I'm really thankful for that. And so I'm basically self-taught aside from that. And then I did my undergrad in physics actually in Scotland, and I kept playing all the time in clubs out there. And then I went to the New England Conservatory for my master's in jazz, and there I interacted with really great people who absolutely were important to me and continue to be important to me. So I studied with Bob Brookmeyer, I studied with Jerry Bergonzi, I studied with Danilo Perez for 2 years, and I also studied with a guy that musicians know but other people don't know, Charlie Banakis, who's a very famous jazz pedagogue, and the guy was a genius of a teacher, So a lot of influences like that, and one of my biggest mentors actually is Fred Hirsch, because as soon as I got to NEC, I would actually travel down to New York to take lessons with him, and as soon as I moved to New York, like he actually referred me for this great gig playing a concerto for piano, sax, and drums at Carnegie Hall with Jeff Ballard and Chris Cheek. So, he's to me like has been one of my biggest mentors. So I've been really lucky along the way, and I consider Lee Konitz also to be a huge mentor to me. I've been playing with him for 7 years now, and he's a constant reminder of what's important in music. Oh man, my first paid gig was like when I was 12. Yeah, because yeah, my mom is an opera singer. She sang in the Paris Opera Chorus for 22 years, and you know she sometimes got requests to do stuff. So she started hiring me as her accompanist when I was like 12, 13, you know, playing standards. And then I also got, yeah, when I was really young in Paris, I got some gigs like playing solo piano for parties and things like that. So pretty early. I'm used to being paid to play music.
And how much were they?
Oh man, not very much, you know. I mean, back then it was francs in France. That was before the euro. I remember when it, you know, making like 100 francs, and so that's like 20 bucks, and being like, yeah, oh my God, I made 100 francs. Yeah. Hi, I'm Dan Tepfer. For more videos, go to jazztimes.com.